In this video, we're going to look at a way to do a virtual guided reading lesson that maintains the key elements of a strong guided reading lesson. Specifically, we're looking at a kindergarten or first grade level guided reading. So think up through step 5, up through FNP-H, up through DRA 14 or 16, because it will have a heavy emphasis on phonics on the front end, a heavy emphasis on word solving in the during, and not a lot of emphasis on the after. There will be a quick retell, a quick comprehension conversation, but mostly we're looking at lots of word work at the beginning and a chance to confer with kids while they read and prompt them on their decoding. So, one of the most important things that we want to make this a true guided reading lesson is to be sure that kids can read on their own with the text at their own pace, reading as they go. And as a teacher, I can kind of lean in and prompt just like I would if I was sitting at a U table with a group of kids. I could lean in and prompt while keeping an eye on others. So we're using ClassKick and we're using a couple of Zoom setup tricks to do that. So let's look at the Zoom. I am signed in from a second device. So right now, this Winnie the Pooh is one of my students, but right now my second device here is signed in with video off. I don't need it until we get to the during reading portion, but just note that I'm signed in with that second device. It happens to be my phone. I'm going to start the lesson using just Zoom. I'm going to spotlight myself so that this is what kids are seeing, and I'm going to switch to a gallery view so that I can see every kid. I can see their mouth moving. I can mute and unmute them, but they're still seeing me in that gallery view. I'm going to do something, my word work warm up. In this case, I'm doing some sight word cards. So I might do letter sounds, whatever this group of students is working on. Do my cards, whole group. The only key here is I have set permission to unmute on Zoom, so I can automatically unmute students without having to ask them to unmute now. So I'm going to, before I cue for the card, I'm going to unmute a couple of students. So I would, if this student was muted, I would mute and then unmute, and then move to the next card, get ready to cue, unmute 2 students, next card, get ready to cue, unmute 2 students, cue, and next card. So that way I am getting data from the most possible students. I'm seeing their mouths move on the Zoom screen in the gallery view, but I'm also unmuting 2 or 3 at a time to hear that and keeping them muted most of the time to avoid that background noise. So that's still what my phonics drill is going to look like, very similar to what the oral drill at the beginning will look like in person. So that's what I'm going to do with Zoom. Then I'm going to move into some more targeted work. So this is where there are maybe 2 kids in my group of 5 who could really use more work on a couple last consonant sounds or a couple sound combinations that they haven't really mastered yet. I'm going to pull 1 or 2 into a breakout room, and the students who are still here are going to get more work on something that they're pretty good at but could use some work on. So this is where we're going to use a ClassKick. And the first slide in my ClassKick is for them to practice. So I have directions here. Time to practice your sight words. Say each sight word and then move it to the next box. When you think you've got them all, press the recording button at the top and then press the green start recording and do it one more time, recording all of the sight words as you move them. So this is a way for students to do some additional sight word practice on their own. Remember, these are the students who are pretty close, have mostly mastered these words or these sounds, and they can do basically their own flashcards. They can drag them and drop them, and then they can record themselves saying each of their sight words. So this gives them something to do to keep working on with some accountability while I am pulling the other group. So what I'm doing in my Zoom is I'm setting up a breakout room. I'm going to pull 1 student over into that breakout room with me. I will open that room when I do. I can turn my video on over here. That way kids can see me as they're still in the main room. I can still see them on my phone. So I can really focus for 2 minutes or so on extra work with 1 or 2 kids, and kids are practicing. They still know I'm here with them. I can still see them. So having that second device can be really helpful for that in the before reading. Let me turn that video back off and go back to the Classkick. So that's the before reading. I've gotten to get everybody some quick word practice. I've gotten to get into the breakout room with a couple kids who need that targeted practice, while other kids still have good work that is accountable and aligned in the main room. And then they're going to have the text to read themselves. So if we jump to the next page, this is what all students are going to have in their Classkick. So if you look at what it's looking like for me as a teacher, I will be able to view all of these for all of my students, and I will be able to see how they are progressing. There will be a little black box around whichever slide they're on. So if you can see that this student is signed in, they're on the first page, you'll be able to see as they move, that black box will move. So I know exactly what page students are on throughout. If I want to lean in and read with them, I know where they are. So that's my view. And then here's what students will be seeing. So I'll do a very quick book introduction where they're looking at this cover, and then they'll get into the text. And in the text itself, it's just the text that they're reading. This is an example where I've already done some prompting, so I'm going to show you one where I have not yet. So kids can click through the text at their own pace and read on their own, which is the key to guided reading. It shouldn't be shared reading, and this is a way to make sure it's not. So kids are reading this. Now, because I am going to be conferring with individual kids one at a time, just like I would in a regular guided reading lesson in person, but I'm a little bit farther away because I am in a breakout room. So even though I have an eye on them, it's harder for me to kind of listen in and help when needed. So I built some prompts in for them. So for example, this is a pattern prompt. Remember the pattern. Kids can at the library. And then a few other prompts as we work our way through. This is so that they can read as independently as possible when I am not there to confer with them. So I highlight the silent E. Listen is a tricky word for them, so I have listen, the word if they need it. Referencing AY, play A. AY, play A. That sound combination that they might need some support with. So the reading that they're doing, it's not over scaffolded, but it has enough prompting, basically the same prompting I would probably be doing if I was sitting there with them, so that they can read through it. So they're reading at their own pace. They'll read through several times. I will be able to keep an eye on their progression as they move. If they need to raise a hand for help, you can see that they can do that, and I can see that. But what I'm doing during this time is conferring with individual kids, just like I would in an in-person guided reading lesson. So again, I'm using Zoom to open a breakout room, keep this other video on, and when I'm in the breakout room, they're still going to see me on the screen, and I'm going to be able to see them on the screen through that second device, which again is just my phone. So that's what the during reading is going to look like. And then again, this is an A through H book, or a DRA below 14 or 16, or a step below 5. So not a lot in the after reading, but they keep going through, and then they have some guidance for how to do their retell, and they'll have the focusing question, and I can chart an answer to the focus question by sharing my screen and charting it right here in Classkick. So the full guided reading lesson is in Classkick, but again, most importantly, they are actually reading on their own with their own version of the text, and I am able to see exactly where they are in that text. One other thing that I'll show you in the during reading, So let's say I want to jump into a breakout room and read with Courtney. Pull Courtney into the room, make sure that I can still see the class and they can still see me on that second device. And then I can prompt verbally in that breakout room, but I can also prompt just like I would point and prompt in the in-person classroom. So I can use a highlighter tool or an underlining tool. So if Courtney plows right through a couple of these words, I can say, wait, go back and read that again. If Courtney struggles here, I can highlight this sound combination that we know. I can cover a part of the word, just like I would cover a part of the word with my fingers, or I can help her to chunk the word by using highlighter. So I have the tools to be able to prompt here for her if she's the person I'm conferring with. And then again, for other students, I've built in those prompts that they can use more independently as they're reading. And I set my breakout room timer for 2 minutes so that if we're reading for 10 or 12 minutes, I can get to 5 or 6 kids in the breakout room and confer with them just like I would in a guided reading lesson.